So we need to start unpacking these first few races of Formula One because a lot is going on. I'm going to start out with Lawson, of course, because what the actual hell is going on with Red Bull? First off, the Red Bull car at the end of last season was struggling, and that seems to have carried into 2025, especially with the fact that Adrian Newey left. It's going to be more difficult for them to fix it. And let me just point something out. Perez was saying the car was having problems literally all of last year, and now people believe him? Literally after he lost his seat? And don't get me wrong, when one driver is winning the championship and the other one's having trouble scoring points, it's very easy to just blame everything on that driver. But now Perez is gone and Lawson's in his seat, and he is objectively driving worse in the Red Bull than he did in the V-Carb. Do I think that the V-Carb car is better than the Red Bull car? No, of course not. But I do think that the Red Bull car is much more difficult to drive, especially if you don't have a driving style similar to Max Verstappen. Verstappen keeps his sensitivity to the car all the way up. He can essentially feel everything, and this allows him to predict and control the car more effectively. So even when the car is struggling, it's not going to show as much. But the problem with these younger drivers like Liam Lawson, Alex Albon, and Pierre Gasly is that they do not have these skills to drive that sort of car, and because they don't have any experience, it's difficult for them to adapt. That's why they went with Perez in the first place, because not only did he have a more similar driving style to Verstappen, but he had enough races under his belt where he could utilize parts of the car that weren't ideal to him. But he came to Red Bull already having these skills. The team has proven time and time again that they cannot develop a second driver for Verstappen. Last year at some point I was talking about how I didn't think that Red Bull should drop Perez to begin with because of team chemistry and sponsorships, but I also mentioned that because he's not as talented as Max Verstappen, he feels the problems with the car more. And then I said, it doesn't matter who your second driver is if you can't fix the car. Lo and behold, they replaced Checo, and the replacement is doing much worse. Now granted, 0 points is still 0 points whether you're coming in 20th or 11th place, and Perez was starting to hit the age where his reflexes were going to slow down, so he was going to have to be released sooner rather than later. But Red Bull can't just throw Liam Lawson into the seat and expect him to perform. Just like with Albon and Gasly, it seems like Red Bull didn't really help Lawson prepare for the Red Bull car, and even though he was on their junior team, that's still a different team in a different car, and he doesn't have the race experience to just be able to figure it out. Which is why most of us think that it's so weird that they didn't pick Yuki instead, because he has so much more experience. And even Yuki himself said that he has a very similar driving style to Verstappen, and he thinks that he can control the Red Bull car. And part of their justification for not picking Yuki is because they said he was too aggressive, but they literally picked Liam Lawson. He's not exactly a passive guy. To be completely honest, I don't think that Lawson was going to be the guy regardless of how much training he had, but he would probably be able to get into the points at least. For example, last year, Carlos Sainz, emergency surgery, Ollie Bearman gets told that he's going to his first F1 race within a week, I think, and even though he trained on Leclerc's setup, he got into Sainz's car and scored points. Or Kimi Antonelli being 5th in the championship even though he's only driven in 2 F1 races, or even Franco Colapinto coming off the bench for Williams and scoring points in his first race. What is so different between these guys and Lawson? In Bearman and Antonelli's case, of course, the car is just better, and in all 3 cases you could argue talent, but more so than that, it's development. Antonelli was sitting next to Toto Wolff for the whole 2024 season, and the entire Mercedes organization has been working with this kid since last year to get him ready for his Formula One debut. In Lawson's case, it seems like because he was developed by a midfield team, Red Bull just expects him to be able to get into their car and perform. He was a reserve driver for Red Bull when he was at V-Carb, but I feel like they're asking a lot of him when he's only been fully into Red Bull for 4 months now? When Max Verstappen debuted, A, he just had more talent, but B, Red Bull was going to be more lenient with his mistakes because they knew that in 5 or so years, he was going to be fighting for a championship. But guys like Lawson, Albon, and Gasly were not being brought to Red Bull to win a championship in 5 years. They were being brought there to help Max Verstappen win at that exact moment. And if they do not perform immediately, they're going to be replaced. If you want your second driver to drive like he has experience, sign somebody with experience. You'd think Red Bull would have learned this with their success with Checo Perez, but instead they're falling right back into this vicious cycle. That's kind of my piece on that, but on to the other teams. Tifosi, go for a walk, drink a lot of water, enjoy the sunshine, do as much as possible to help your mental health because it's gotta be struggling right now. Hamilton won a sprint race, which is exciting. They managed to fuck everything else up incomprehensibly, but at least you gotta win. Also a hit to the Tifosi and Team LH more so. The Mercedes looks very good. It actually looks like a Mercedes. George Russell has really stepped up into his role of driver number 1, and if he can manage to outqualify the McLarens, he's definitely going to be bringing home some race wins. And for Kimi Antonelli, if he keeps up driving like this, he's essentially a lock for Rookie of the Year. McLaren is fast. Plain and simple. They're definitely the guys to beat this year. Both guys made a couple little mistakes. Piastri's happened to be in the rain, so it cost him, but I don't think that it's anything to really worry about, and they're gonna get more fine-tuned as the season goes on. The guys seem to be getting along pretty well, at least for now. The media is definitely gonna try to make something out of pretty much nothing, but we'll have to see where it goes, and we'll have to see if any other cars can challenge them more. Lance Stroll apparently woke up one day and decided he wanted to be a Formula 1 driver. And Alonso had some very unfortunate incidents, but the car itself does look like it's doing better. Alex Albon's cooking in the Williams. I got it. That is exciting. Carlos Sainz is cooking a little bit less in the Williams, but I do think that he's going to start to improve as the season goes on. Haas is doing pretty good for Haas, especially because they have a rookie, and Hülkenberg has already outscored Sauber's entire last year. Alpine is struggling, neither driver has scored any points, and I do kind of feel bad for Doohan because I think that he's going to be booted before he ever finds his footing. VCarb has been dragged into the mess that is Red Bull, but they have been qualifying decently. But I do want to talk about Isaac Hadjar and his crying at the Australian Grand Prix. Isaac Hadjar is 20 years old. His frontal lobe has not developed. The guy worked his entire life to get into Formula 1, and then when he finally gets there, his nerves are through the roof because it's his first race, and also because Helmut Marko is breathing down his neck saying that he can be replaced, and then he makes this little mistake. He slips on the paint, spins out his car, and smashes into a wall. He got out of his car, walked back to the paddock, got changed, and sat and supported his team. Tears or not, he conducted himself very well. And I would love to say that nobody could ask for a better reaction, but of course, Helmut fucking Marko would. It's not like the dude ran into the stands looking for mommy and daddy. The physical stress from the crash and the emotional distress from the probably gut-wrenching disappointment in himself accumulated into tears. Athletes put their entire souls into their sports, and they should not be shamed for showing it. And literally the only person that disagreed with Hadjar's reaction was Helmut Marko. And regardless of what he thinks about it, it should have been kept out of the media, because now everybody knows that he doesn't have faith in his driver. Not that we didn't already know that, but still. But that's kind of all I have so far. It's still early, so things are of course going to change, but please let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, have a great rest of your day.